business planning. Now let's go to the next part. What are the critical success factors? What would define that I'm going to succeed? What are the basic minimum things which I must do? Now, trust me, critical success factors can become very, very idea specific or business specific or industry specific. But I'm still trying to generalize here and put some of the critical success factors which would be broadly applicable to as many, industries or scenarios involving technology-driven startups. Number one, think big. Think big. Think as big as possible. I'm reminded of this example where whenever Mukesh Ambani, and I, read this somewhere, that whenever Mukesh Ambani would go to his father, Sri Dhirubhai Ambani ji, and say that, look, I have got this idea or this is what I want to do, Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani would send him back and say that, come back to me, that how would you do 100 times, how would you have an idea which is 100 times of this idea which you're telling me? You're telling me that you can do 10 crores. How can you do 100 times of that in the next couple of years? Similarly, when the idea of the Reliance Infocom came and people went to him, his Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani went to him and said that, this is how we are planning for the business. We'll have so many subscribers and this is going to be the cost. And therefore we'll have, so much of revenue in so many years. He said, you guys are not thinking it right. Because you are saying that you'll charge 2 rupees per call or 3 rupees per call. But that's not the way the business is going to grow. He said, I would like every person on the street to use a Reliance connection. And he said that, today that person communicates with his family using a 25 paisa postcard. So what you need to do is to ensure that your call cost doesn't exceed 25 paisa for him. So go back on the drawing board, think how you're going to make it happen and then come back to me. And that's what exactly Reliance Infocom did. And trust me, I'm sure their competitors like Airtel and Vodafone have done very well. But the factor which, this was the Dhirubhai Ambani factor which ensured that every grocery vendor, every milkman in the street, every driver got access to mobile communication. So think big. The other part about thinking big is that actually thinking big is easier and execution of thinking big is also easier, right? Let's say you want to create, a product which you will, which has X cost and you will monetize over Y number of customers. Probably, if you think big, your cost would not increase by too much amount, but your monetization can grow much, much, much larger. Actually, that was fundamentally the logic behind Windows, operating system. Because till that time, till Microsoft came into prominence, most of the operating systems which were written were written by and large for proprietary platforms. And therefore, for let's say Unix systems, etc., which were tightly integrated with the hardware, and they had very limited number of installations, and therefore, their cost was very high. And this is how Bill Gates and Steve Jobs came and disrupted that market, saying that why should the computing be limited to people at the back end? Why should not every user get access to personal computer or computing devices? And therefore, the operating system which I'm going to create is going to run on all of them, and therefore, we would not have a space of just 50 computers in the world, as IBM had said in the year 1946, but probably, millions of computers. Now, today, all of this looks, very apparent, but go back to year 1975 and just think that the people who would have thought it that way probably thought it very, very big at that time and thought it very, very differently. So think big. When you think big, there'll be a lot of people who would be interested in listening to your idea. When you think big, there'll be a lot of people who will get associated with you to execute your idea. If you think small, you would never grow. You would also be not be able to scale to the next level very easily. So think big. The second is that the team is of paramount importance. Now, this is generally true, and as I've written in the presentation, but it's so much more true in case of technology startups. Now, in technology startups, as I would repeat it later as well, a lot of us get enamored and, fall in love with the technology we have created. We fall in love with the features of the product which we have thought. And we think these features are very cool and, I'm going to be, a very rich man selling these features and products. But the fact is that in technology-driven startups, also, as in any other organization, but probably much more in technology startups, you need to have people who are very good in sales and marketing. Otherwise, you may create the best product, but it won't sell. And that is why if you see a lot of good companies, organizations which have succeeded, had a very good starting team with them. Whether you look at international organizations like Microsoft, where you had Bill Gates and Paul Allen and some of these guys who started Microsoft, or even if you want to look at Indian companies, look at Infosys. There were 7 founding members. Look at HCL. HCL had 6 to 7 founding members. And all of them had some very interesting complementary skills. Some people were very good in technology orientation. Some were good in delivery or, serving the customers. And some had phenomenal brains for finance. Some had phenomenal brains for marketing. So team is of paramount importance, number one. Number two, the point which I've not written here is try and get team on board before you get into, the execution. Because once you get into that cycle of executing your idea, and if you don't have a team in place, then by that time it's too late for you to create the team. It's not easy to create the team at that level. So create your team before you start executing it. Be focused. Don't try to do too many things. Don't try to do too many things. You know what? I've seen, we are in competence benchmarking. I see some of my competitors and I've seen some of the other organizations. They try to do so many things. They want to do assessments. They want to do training. They want to do placements. The problem is, at the end of the day, if you are starting out, you have very limited resources. You have limited money, and the biggest limitation you have is the kind of time you have. And if you try to spread yourself too thin on that, you will end up not doing anything very properly. So don't try too many things. B, there is no such thing as a part-time business. So please don't think that I'll keep working and keep drawing this nice salary which I'm drawing in whatever organization I'm working, but as a part-time, let me start it on a part-time and see how it succeeds, how it works. Please don't do that. If you want to start a business, please jump into it. Of course, after validating your idea, after doing the business planning, but then once you're convinced that there is a potential for that business, please jump into it full time. Take that risk. I've seen so many people who have started something at part-time. Very interestingly, it started working also, but then they reached a level that they had to leave their job to get full-time into it, and they didn't have courage at that time. Oh, it was a very, very drastic situation to get into. So there is no such thing as a part-time business. Third, try and solve a specific problem. Try and see, okay, it goes back to the point, please don't fall in love with the product or the solution or the feature or the technology or what is the latest things which are happening or Ruby on Rails or PHP. No, these things are not important. End of the day, if you're doing business, you're trying and solving a specific problem and be very focused in solving that specific problem. Now look at, even if you look at the social networking space, you have Facebook, which solves a particular problem. You have LinkedIn, which solves another specific problem. The target audiences are different, the target segments are different, and both of them are very useful in very different ways. So you can't be Facebook and LinkedIn and this and that at the same time. Please take a call. What do you want to be? And then focus that problem. But at the same time, don't forget to be flexible. A lot of times what will happen, and trust me happens, is that you'll make, and has happened with me, and I'm sure it has happened with most of the entrepreneurs, they create these fantastic business plans, which are very nice, which are very solid, which are very risk-free. But when they go to the market, they see that people need those products or solutions or services, but probably in a little different way. And also, for example, they may think that I'll charge so much from a customer, but they realize that they may not get so much of money. Or the customer says, give me this in addition, and then I'll get you that money. So as far as you are within those boundary conditions of solving a specific problem and you are focused, you can be flexible. And go and read on, if you can, stories about Groupon and these group discounting businesses which are now coming, which have come. So if you can go back and read about Groupon, they got into a business which they tried to run for 4 years. They were not very successful, but finally, from those learnings they had, they got into this Groupon thing, and they're now, of course, a $1 billion organization. The other important is take advice from as many people as possible, right? Do take advice from the right people, as probably you've seen, from one of the commercials I've seen about cricket, which talks about that, don't take advice from everyone, but I would still say take advice from as many people as possible. Talk to the entrepreneurs about their learning and experiences, right? Talk to entrepreneurs whom you think are very successful. Try and also talk to the entrepreneurs who have not been so successful. And interestingly, you learn much more from people who have probably not been successful than probably who have been successful. Talk to your potential customers. Take their advice. Listen to them. And so on and so forth. Talk to your friends. Talk to people, who, I don't know, if you have an opportunity to talk to your competition, talk to them. Just try and understand what's working for them, what's not working for them. Track competition. Now, there may be a situation, and a very good situation, that you are a first mover. Then you have a great advantage. If you are the first person who has thought of that idea, of that product, or of that solution, I think you're in a fairly good situation. But if you're second, don't worry, because you have an opportunity then to improvise upon someone who was the first mover. And I'll give this example again. Google was, of course, had done some pioneering work on search, and had moved very fast, very ahead. But if you look at the latest statistics, Bing from Microsoft has caught on. Very interestingly, if you look at Microsoft, I've rarely found them to be great pioneers on any product, solutions, or technology, but they have always, perfected this. They have perfected this model of having the next version, or version 3, as they say, perfected. So they will look at what Google has done and immediately come around and offer something which is interesting and catch up with them. And they've done this for a lot of products and solutions, right? The fact is, even if you look at the Windows operating system, they actually looked at what Apple was doing and just, I'm not sure even if they improvised that product, but actually they improvised the marketing strategy for Windows, and they became much more successful. So if you're second or you have competition, even that is great. Don't worry about it. Read as much about the developments happening as possible. So if you're developing a CRM solution, or you're developing an ERP solution, or you're creating a local search engine, or you're creating a travel portal which is technology driven, please go ahead and read about as much as developments as happening in that industry about those technology as possible. It would help you shape up your business in a phenomenal way. Get visible on all the related forums. There are today a lot of these free PR sites. Just get visible on all of them, right? Listen to other people on them. At the same time, go ahead and advertise and market your products there. One thing which I'm not sure if I put in my slides, but what I want to talk to you is, when you're a businessman, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to save every penny and be very, very careful about spending it. And whenever you think that you have to spend X amount of money, go and question yourself that why do you have to spend that money? Is there an alternative to that? And a lot of times when you're asking those questions, you may ask, you may end up getting, redefining your business as well, right? A lot of times you may be thinking that I'll provide, some, let's take YouTube, for example. You have a lot of these videos on YouTube, and you want to start something like similar to that. Hello. Sorry. I think I lost my connection. Can I ask questions or just try and understand from here if people are able to hear me? Um, for a small while, the connection was lost, and that's why I put that quite. Can you folks hear me? By any chance, if at any stage you're not able to hear me, just please, put that point in the chat, and I'll be very glad to come back. All right. All right, so get visible on all the related forums. So yeah, I was mentioning the point that we have to be very careful about the money which we are spending, and that may even lead to redefining our business model. And I was giving this example of YouTube, and I don't know. I mean, um, for example, when I'm sure YouTube would have started business, they would have thought we'll get these videos, etc., and then would have thought, what are we wanting to create? Are we going to create a platform? Are we going to create a content for this? And therefore, you may also like to do something similar, but may not be the platform player, but probably the content player. So there's a lot of such questioning on the money which you're spending or what you're wanting to spend will end up reading as well.